Hey, welcome to episode 238 of 3 Point Podcast. We're partnered with Skymint Cannabis, Michigan's undisputed leader in the industry, many locations throughout the state of Michigan. Don't forget the coupon code 3.20 at the Corona store. That's 20% off Skymint products, only new customers. But get on in there, support the podcast, and if you're a customer at another dispensary, make the switch. Also, if you're over 21 and a cannabis user, check out the new Skymint Reserve. That is the good stuff. We're also partnered with Memorial Healthcare, home of the new Now Community Wellness Center. Join us for our fall open house on November 16th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Tours, raffles, smoothie samples from the big salad, all kinds of specials, including 50% off enrollment fees and a tabletop show with over 30 vendors. It all takes place November 16th at the Now Building on North Shiawassee Street in Owosso, Michigan. Also want to thank our local partners, AZEE Printing Solutions, Capital Sports Fieldhouse and Hit and Pitch, Pro Real Estate and Auction, NCG Cinemas. Welcome. We'll tell you a little bit more about that. Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. Well, we got a jam-packed pod tonight with maybe the greatest Saturday of sports ever. At least currently it is. How's that for a statement, boys, huh? We'll also have
prisoner of the moment.
I always am, but we'll get into that, man, because it was pretty incredible. And we'll also have a prep spotlight with Brian Calloway of the Lansing State Journal. But we'll do a quick catch-up here. Matt, I think I saw that you went to some apple orchard, did some apple cider and pumpkins and stuff. Is that what you did?
Yeah, we did the classic fall fun day this Sunday. You know, the Lions are on a bye. So, you know, the last few years when the Lions are on a bye, that's what we've kind of done. We're like, all right, let's get this fall day in. So there's this really cool, it's a farm. It's a huge farm, kind of north of Charlotte. Pumpkins, hay rides, a ton of stuff for the kids, you know, slides and bubbles and, you know, concessions and all the classic fall pumpkin patch, apple orchard type stuff going on. And it's actually like, it's huge. It's really, really super cool. So it's fun, you know, especially with the kids. We went with some friends who, their daughter is in the same grade as my daughter. So they're like best friends. So, you know, we got to hang out with friends. We got to see them interact, run around, play, and do that fall stuff. Even though it's funny, I know sometimes Michigan gets those Indian summer stretches where it hits like the 70s. I mean, it's still an adjustment for me for it to be fall.
Yeah.
But it was like 84 degrees today. And, you know, like we're out there. It's like I'm at the pumpkin patch doing all this stuff. I should be in like a hoodie. We should be getting like hot chocolate and stuff like that. Not going to get chugging water because we're sweating, but it was fun.
This is the dumbest question maybe I'll ever ask, but I'll be honest, I've always wondered it when I see like people in down south tweeting about fall and this or that. What is like the difference so obviously the temperature is warmer.
Yeah.
Are the leaves changing? Are the leaves falling off the trees? What are you missing at this cider mill that would be at like say Uncle John's in St. John's?
I think that's the big thing is the climate, but what's weird is it gets cold at night, you know, cool, cold, whatever. So the leaves are changing, but that's it. You know, if you look at the fall foliage maps, everything's always later down here. You know, things peak up in the UP, especially or northern Michigan, probably about now.
Right now.
And it's just kind of starting down here. So it's just later. Honestly, it's the temperature. like I said, you go to Uncle John's and, you know, you're in your nice Michigan hoodie and, you know, you got maybe even a beanie on and you're snuggling up maybe under a blanket on the hayride. I was just sweating my ass off the whole time at this pumpkin patch. I was like, man, I got to buy some more water and stuff. So, but it's fun. It's super fun because, you know, you get to do all that stuff and
you talk about
take
the
a
colors.
zillion pictures too.
My wife and I were coming home from church today and we took a cruise through the country. And I mean, it was just spectacular. The colors right now, the reds and the oranges, you know, I mean, I'm not one of these guys that says, hey, honey, let's hop in the car and let's go drive all the way up to Mackinac and do a color tour. But I will say Michigan is a pretty cool state for that. And, you know, I got to give some props to our friends over there in East Lansing. The campus of Michigan State is about as gorgeous as it gets when we're at this time of year. You know,
it is. It really is. I can't argue. I think I would say I would probably pick Ann Arbor over East Lansing like every other time of the year except for fall. There is something about, I don't know what it is about the campus, must be because it's right on the river there. That really makes it pop. It's the social media team, you know, taking advantage of it. I don't know what it is, but it is incredible. I had a little bit of a fun day. So basically I woke up today, you know, maybe use the restroom. Toilet's plugged. Toilet got plugged. really wasn't that bad of a. I don't know how it got plugged in the first place, but as you guys know, I'm at this new apartment. So, I grab out the plunger, and when I say I was plunging this thing with all my might for probably 10 minutes, I was plunging this toilet. It would not unplug. Nothing was even left in the bowl,
Plungering.
but there must have been like a little, very small hole that was like leaking everything out, but there was nothing left in this bowl by the time, I'm done. Just would not flush. So about 2 hours, time keeps going by. I let the toilet fill back up, give it another try. You know how it works sometimes when a toilet's plugged. Let the bowl fill up, give it a full strength flush, nothing. So at this point, it's Sunday. I don't have a toilet, so I have to put in a maintenance request. This place, I already know how it's probably going to be, 2-3 days before they get there. So I'm like, you know what? I rolled my sleeves. I head to Home Depot. I said, I'm going to solve this myself.
Wow.
I don't know anything about this stuff. So I'm like, just looking at the plumbing area. I get like a drain snake. One, Ted, before you even comment on this, I know what you're probably thinking at some point. I don't have Charlie at the ready to, help me with every man's job that I need. So I'm doing this. So I get all this. I get a Home Depot orange bucket. I get, a like heavy duty plunger that's got the long nose on it, like an elephant trunk.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that'll help. I get a drain snake, 3-foot like auger thing.
Uh-huh.
Come back and I take off my shirt, just sweatpants, got these rubber like latex gloves on. And for the next 10 minutes, I'm like running this drain snake through here. Little to my surprise, man, I give it a few cranks and it clears right up. And It just made the rest of the day just incredible. I'm like flying on cloud 9 right now because I'm not a handyman whatsoever. Yeah. I've always been the first to admit that. My expertise when it comes to that sort of thing is basically landscapes, mowing lawns. Like I'm a lawnmower. I know how to run that sort of thing, but anything in the house or, hammering nails, putting together a desk, I'm an idiot. So I felt pretty accomplished, having done that this morning. But
so the main reason,
second part,
yesterday, real quick, the main reason you went to Home Depot is because you had to use the bathroom, right?
No, I actually did. I will admit it. I stopped at the old leasing office. I just had drank coffee right as this was all happening, which is why I was on the toilet in the first place. So I had another round. I actually stopped at the old leasing office on my way out to Home Depot. It left them a surprise in the locker room. But anyways, so
hope it wasn't an upper decker.
Yeah. So this past Saturday, as I was back in Corona, watching at our cousin Casey, Chi-Town drummer, at his house watching Penn State, Michigan. I made a couple stops around town. Stopped at Meijer to get some booze. Stopped at the Downs Deluxe Barbershop. Got a haircut. So as I'm at Meijer, somebody yells to me, this older lady, and says, "Hey, I know you." I was like, I had no idea who she was. You're from 3 Point Podcast. I said, yeah. So I'm feeling good for a second. Then very first words out of her mouth after that, "You're shorter than I thought you'd be." So that's basically just a quick recap of my weekend. Had some highs, had some lows.
Was her name Carolyn? Was her name Carolyn?
I don't think I ever got her name, to be honest. I don't
know. She tweeted us that she met you.
I didn't see that.
Carolyn. Yes. Yep. There you go. So that was, kind of cool, I guess, for a second.
Yeah, I think I told the story that this past summer I met her too at Meijer. And so her tweet to us was that finally I've met all 3 of 3 Point Podcasts.
So she's she's the ultimate super fan. That's right. That's awesome. Appreciate your support. But yeah, she definitely knocked me down a few pegs as if I'm not already short enough. So
she goes back to my younger days when I used to hang out at a bar by the corner pub. It used to be called the Sportsman, and she used to be tending bar there. So we go back a long way. Yeah. I don't have a lot on catch up, guys, but I do want to throw this out there. My brother George, he's got twin boys. They're young teenagers. I don't know if they're 13 or 14. They're actually mirror twins. Do you know what mirror twins are? They're not identical twins, but there's a phenomenon where it's called mirror twins. Tommy's a lefty, Teddy's a right-hander, and their hair parts opposite ways. It's very
it is kind of like
how do you spell? I'm curious. How do you spell mirror?
Like look in a mirror.
Mirror. Oh, okay.
Yeah, mirror. Yeah.
Wow.
I got the Michigan accent going, but George has done pretty well. He, for the boys, he splits them up, and they both love their own college football teams. Teddy's a Michigan Wolverine all the way. Tommy's Notre Dame all the way because they live in Goshen, Indiana, so they have fights between themselves over the two. Teddy got to go to the night game, Michigan and Hawaii. Unfortunately, Tommy went to the Notre Dame and Stanford game this last Saturday night. So, yeah, but it's a cool thing that they get to do. And cool. I just wanted to send a shout out to them because that is cool.
I tell you what, I can't believe I'm saying this. It's a lot better to be a Michigan fan right now than as a Notre Dame fan. I never would have thought my whole life it's never been that case. At this point in time, these last 2 years, with the way we're rolling, man, it's a great time to be a Michigan fan.
It sure is. And we're going to get a lot more into that after our prep spotlight with Brian Calloway. Before we get to that, though, we have, like I mentioned, a new sponsor, NCG Cinemas. They're on board for a few weeks with us, and with good reason, because they've donated to the cause. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Matt?
Yes, sir. NCG Cinemas is the official movie theater sponsor of 3 Point Podcast. Visit NCG to see all the newest movie releases in comfort by reserving one of our VIP reclining seats. Plus, NCG also has free refills on popcorn and soft drinks, so you get the most value out of your movie-going experience. Head over to NCG in Owosso or any of the NCG theaters all over Michigan, really all over the country. Yeah. There's actually some down here in North Carolina too.
Yeah, I want to add to that a little bit. I mean, they have 26 locations in 9 states. I mean, the Owosso one is the one I go to most of the time because it's convenient. And, you know, this old gray hair guy that I am, my wife and I, a lot of times will go to 11 o'clock matinee and hardly anybody there. You know, you still got the rest of the day, but the East Lansing one there is just incredible. I mean, they have drinks, right? And they also put on live events. They're going to have a Coldplay live concert going on sale here. They have UFC fights on the big screen. I mean, it's just a great spot to go. And also, sports fans like us, we like our popcorn when we're watching games. You can buy some popcorn to go and enjoy that movie theater popcorn. So
there's nothing like movie theater popcorn, man.
Absolutely. And they got some great releases coming up too. You know, Black Adam with The Rock and Wakanda Forever. I mean, there's some good stuff coming. So go see your local NCG Cinemas, and we're glad to be partnered up with them.
Yeah, but the big thing, the big thing that brings us on is the giveaway that we're doing with NCG and our great friends at Rivals Taphouse and Grille. And you'll be seeing some social media posts too. But the giveaway that we're doing is for the Michigan State game on October 29th. So both teams are on a bye this upcoming week, so they get to rest up and get ready. But we want everyone to head to Rivals, because what you can do is obviously watch the game on all their screens all over and their big screen, get some great food, get some great drinks, but also win some cool stuff. So NCG hooked us up with an autographed Jim Harbaugh football. So, I mean, I know for Michigan State fans, probably not that exciting. Still pretty cool if you happen to win that.
If you're a State fan and you win that, imagine the irony of just like tossing it in a garbage can or something like that. I mean, if you win it, do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want.
The thing I thought, I was like, even if you were a State fan, you probably have a family member or friend who's a Michigan fan. So now you got a Christmas present. You know, that's going to be awesome. The other stuff, we're going to have some ESPN swag, some Rivals gift cards. And our friends over at AZEE Printing Solutions hooked us up with some koozies, some Rivals and 3 Point Podcast koozies. So it's going to be cool. I mean, head to Rivals. We always hype them up. That's a great place to watch sports. Get some food, get some drinks, and it's free to have a chance anyway, to win some of these cool prizes.
There is not a better atmosphere on I don't know if on the single Saturday every year than being at a Michigan bar for a Michigan State game. Rivals right up there at the top of the list. Like I said, it's a perfect sports bar, and it's all the people you know, and it's just the rival. That's what makes the Michigan State rivalry, in my opinion, so much better than Ohio State. Man, go to your local Rivals and you see it for yourself, especially when there's a Jim Harbaugh side football on the line too.
And I think I'm going to actually, boys, I think I'm going to be representing 3 Point Podcast there. I think I'm going to go. I think I'll run the show as far as the giveaways. I'm pretty sure that what I'll do is at halftime, we'll do the big draws and see what we can do. So you got to stick around for halftime at least to win the prize. But man, what better spot than Rivals? And it's so good to be teamed up with NCG and that chance to win that Harbaugh autograph football. That's awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll have the prep spotlight next, guys, and we'll talk with Brian Calloway of the Lansing State Journal right after this. Well, it's now time for the prep spotlight presented by Capital Sports Fieldhouse. Our special guest this evening, Brian Calloway of the Lansing State Journal. He does an outstanding job on prep coverage, and really that's what we're all about here, even though we do Michigan and Michigan State and the Lions, but high school sports, it's what it's all about. So thanks for joining us, Brian. And, we want to talk to you a little bit about the Lansing area. But before we do, give us a little bio on yourself. What sent you over to Lansing to cover sports?
Yeah, so I went to college at Eastern Michigan. Got done there about '05 and was down in Adrian actually for about 5 or 6 years before making the trek up to Lansing. When I was started in Lansing, kind of doing some behind the scenes stuff before I really started really digging in on some prep stuff, and I did some Michigan State stuff prior to going full fledged on preps. But yeah, I've been doing preps in Lansing probably for about 7 or 8 years now. So it's kind of crazy to think it's been that long for sure.
I mean, how do you think Ted feels? You've been doing it for how long, Ted?
37 years. I love it still.
Yeah. Brian, I want to ask you in our prep spotlight, I do this to every guest we have, the media members who cover the sport. The three of us are Corunna Cavalier alums. They're in D5 this year, so I've got to ask. D5, what teams are you looking at that would potentially be, hurdles for Corunna in the playoffs? Are we thinking Portland? Is that probably the biggest one in the Lansing area?
I think Portland is the one that immediately jumps out at me as far as in Greater Lansing. I mean, Greater Lansing's kind of got a nice little staple of D5 teams. You look at Portland, and obviously with what they've done and winning the CWAC White once again, and they just went up to Cadillac and got a win on Friday, which that was a pretty big win because Cadillac is a team that would just have climbed in the top 10 in Division III. So, Portland went toe to toe with DeWitt. I don't think DeWitt is the team that we've seen over the past few years, but DeWitt is still DeWitt. So they went toe to toe with DeWitt and lost the game in the last seconds there. But then you also kind of look at some of the other teams. Williamston is a team that is kind of intriguing just because of their quarterback Alex Petersburg, who's a kind of a dual threat guy, and he just led them to a big win over Olivet. And Olivet was a team that was playing well and had just climbed into the top 10 in Division 5. And then I mentioned Olivet. I mean, they're a team that had has made some strides recently. I mean, they lost their season opener to Charlotte, but they've been pretty strong since, other than that hiccup against Williamston last week. So I think when you're looking at our area, I think Portland is kind of the team in Division 5 that would probably kind of pose the biggest challenge to Corunna. But I mean, with what Corunna's done this year, I mean, that's been pretty outstanding with what they've done. I know they lost quite a bit from that team last year that made it to the regional, and then for them to be 7-1, right now, I mean, it's pretty good season for them.
The big name that I feel like I hear all the time in the Lansing area in terms of a stud player is Evan Boyd. We know how good he is, committed to Central Michigan, wide receiver from East Lansing. Who's another player or two that you think maybe it doesn't get as much pub as Evan Boyd, but a star in the high school ranks?
I think if you're kind of looking at some stars, I mean, I think Mason has got some players that are a little bit under the radar with what they've been doing. And, Mason's the only team in the Greater Lansing that's still unbeaten, 8-0 heading into a Week 9 contest against Eden Rapids. And they have a sophomore quarterback that's put up some pretty big numbers. Kason Carswell, over 1,000 yards passing, has got 22 touchdowns, I believe, which is a school record. He just threw for 313 yards last week in a win over Jackson as well, too, which is just shy of a single game school record. And he's had some pretty nice performances for them. And like I said, he's only a sophomore. So, I mean, I think he's one of those guys. I mean, DeWitt's got a lineman, Matthew Neff, who's going to Central Michigan as well, too. And obviously with kind of the position that he plays, you don't necessarily get as much pub as someone like an Evan Boyd. And East Lansing, even look at Evan Boyd's teammate, Dorian Jackson. He's a guy that committed to Grand Valley before the start of the season. And he's a kind of a guy on the opposite side that can make some big plays for them. So those are some of the few. I mean, even Nakia Mockery from Hazlitt is an intriguing guy. He's a running back and a dangerous kick returner. I mean, he opened his season by returning a couple of kicks for scores against DeWitt. And, and he's a very shifty running back. Guys, people don't kick to him at all as well, too. And he's just a fun guy to watch play as well, too. So I think those are maybe some of the other names to kind of think about when you're kind of looking at some of the talent in the Lansing area for sure.
There was one I was going to ask you about that you didn't mention there. I don't know if you were at the DeWitt Grand Ledge game, but the kid for Grand Ledge, Sean Foster, ripped off 400 yards and 7 touchdowns in a 56-49 win over the Panthers. I mean, that's a game for all time. First of all, were you there? And what do you think of Sean Foster?
No, I was not at that game, actually. I was at the Portland-Charlotte game that day. But, Sean Foster is a guy, he comes from good lineage. Obviously, his dad was a high school star at Lansing Sexton and, went on to play at Michigan State. And, and this Sean Foster, his son, I mean, quite a performance and quite the year that he's having. I mean, he's a guy that hadn't played quarterback since 5th grade. They slide him in at quarterback this year. And, obviously, because a little bit of adjustment when you're, getting back into a position that you haven't played. But I mean, he's just been outstanding for them this year. They, seven touchdowns in that game against DeWitt. 396 yards, scores the game-winning touchdown with 51 seconds left as well, too. And, he's just had a heck of a senior season. And I'm actually going to get a chance to see him play for the first time this year on Friday because they have East Lansing in a pretty big game that will decide who shares the CAAC Blue title with Holt. But, he's definitely one of those guys as well, too, that will jump out at you, too, with just what he's done as a senior, especially playing quarterback for them. And he's also, headed to Grand Valley to play football as well.
Yeah, I was going to tell Matt and Jared they'll be happy about that.
Yeah. Go Lakers! Yeah, Grand Valley just picked up a big W over Ferris, right?
Yeah, anchor bone, baby.
That's right. I want to ask you. So you when we were talking about Corona, you kind of said not necessarily a surprise year for them, but like coming off of last year, big season so far for them. Any schools in the Lansing area that either way are a surprise? You thought they were going to be really good and they're down. Or maybe a team that you didn't expect to have a great season and they're looking really good. Any teams that stick out to you?
I think the one that jumps out is Lansing Catholic. That's kind of been the big name around here for so many years. Or a team that just won a state championship last year, had won 2 state championships in the last 3 years. And, for them, just to be, hanging by their pins and needles, just trying to get into the playoffs. I mean, they're only 3-5 now. They just got a big win last week over Fowlerville, but no, I definitely did not see them being a team that's, under 500 just based on, what they've been able to do since really 2008 when Jim Ahern took over, and shortly after Jim Ahern took over that program. So for them to, kind of be struggling this year was something I didn't expect at all. I think Lansing Waverly has been one of the good stories around here as well, too. I mean, they're a team that has not had a lot of success recently. They won their first 4 games of the season, or I think it was 3 of their first. Actually, it was 3 of their first 4 games of the season they won. They're 4-4 right now. They're in position to make the playoffs, although they have a big game this week against DeWitt. So I think they've been a good story as well, too, just because they haven't had as much success recently. And they had a new coach, D.A.I. Jones, took over that program, and he's been able to get them to play respectable football and actually be in contention to make the playoffs, which is something that hasn't been said about Lansing Waverly football in some time. And Portland St. Patrick is an 8-player team that has been a powerhouse in the Greater Lansing for some time, and they're sitting at 3-5 as well too. So definitely did not see that happening as well too, considering all the success that they've had and the deep runs that they've been able to make in 8-player football in recent years.
I want to ask you about a kid who actually isn't in high school anymore, but he's in college, and we've been lucky enough to be able to watch him on Saturdays. That's Andrew Anthony, former East Lansing wide receiver. I know you wrote.
He needs to get more playing time, right?
In the day. We love watching him. We've kind of been wondering where he's been at this year, but it's just such a stacked receiver room that he hasn't been on the field as much, or hasn't popped off the screen like he did against East Lansing last year. What do you remember about him, and what type of kid was he?
Oh, Andrew was a great kid. He's one of my favorite guys to cover. Actually, when he was going through the recruiting process a little bit, he did a little bit of a recruiting diary for us. So he would kind of update things from time to time, and tell us what was going on with him, and kind of giving us like a inside scoop for him to provide his perspective on the process as well too. But I just remember him just kind of being this very, very nice kid, very humble kid, but also just such a standout guy on the field, and just with all the plays that he was able to make for East Lansing. And like you said, I mean, from watching football on Saturdays, you're like, yeah, when's he going to get the ball more? When's he going to be in the field more? It's kind of been tough for him to be out there, kind of with the stacked receiver room that Michigan has had. But he really, with the performance he had, last year in East Lansing, he really thought that that's going to be a sign of some things to come for him in that Michigan football program. And hey, I think he could still do some things there for sure.
Yeah, and maybe to your point, you mentioned how his character and good kid, at least from what we see, he doesn't seem to be complaining about playing time or touches or anything like that. So that is cool.
Yeah, he didn't ever seem to be like that kind of kid where it's kind of all about him. Sometimes you see those kids that are there and they want the immediate. They got to be on the field immediately, and if it doesn't work out that way, it's like, hey, I got to enter the transfer portal or things like that. But he never kind of gave that vibe to me from the times when I was covering him as one of those kids that was going to jump ship if he wasn't getting the playing time immediately and whatnot. I think Michigan kind of was a dream scenario for him as well too. I remember from him in high school. His dad was a big Michigan fan, and would always be watching Michigan games a lot. And I think his mom was actually a Michigan State grad, so a little bit of a house divided there. But I mean, I think the appeal. I mean, I think his dad, being a big Michigan fan, I think he just kind of really relishes, being able to watch his son play and run onto the big house field every Saturday.
Yep.
Brian, things have changed a lot from when I started out, especially in the newspaper business. You've been in the business now 10, 15 years, whatever it is. What have you seen the biggest challenge for the newspaper business in general? I mean, it seems like everything's going to social media nowadays. Obviously, the online editions are really where most people are getting their news from. Are you finding that a hindrance, or you just adjusting to it and growing with it?
You always just have to adjust to it and grow with it. And I just remember when I started in the industry, Twitter wasn't even a thing yet. And online wasn't even that big of a presence then. I mean, I know when I worked in Adrian, I remember we had an online website, but it was like, you posted stuff later in the day, and it wasn't the first place that people were getting their news. They were more so picking up the paper and getting their news. But now it's just big online, and people don't pick up the paper as much. I don't mind it as well too, just because of the instantaneous thing, being able to update things quickly. If you do happen to make a mistake, being able to fix that and update that quickly as well too. So, I mean, I think there's some very good things about it. And there's also some bad things about it as well too, just because of the time demands. And being in the news industry is almost like a 24/7 cycle. You always got to be kind of on and, kind of knowing what's going on as well too. Right. Just because, you never know when something can break, and then, it can kind of adjust your day and whatnot as well too. But, I kind of enjoy kind of, the social media atmosphere of it, and just being able to, access things quickly and connect with people as well too. Just being able to connect with athletes via social media, whether it's Twitter or Instagram and things like that. And I think it's a unique opportunity for someone that's a journalist, to kind of build your own brand as well too via social media. I mean, it's almost like what you guys have with your pod as well too, and being able to kind of build a brand through social media and reach people that you may not be able to reach just by advertising. Like, oh, hey, we have this podcast, let's put it in the newspaper and hope someone listens to it. I mean, I think just the power of social media, you can reach so many more people and get some of your content, have eyes on so many more people that you can reach just through basically a basic newspaper that has a circulation that's only spread out around a certain area.
Sure.
I'm just a media peon, so this probably doesn't mean much, but I think you're a great writer. I love reading your writing. I always have, even when I was in high school. At M Live, you always have great stuff, or not M Live, but not that. But anyway, still, it's Lansing State Journal. I love your writing, but you've been doing this like 15 years, like Ted said. What's some of your favorite stories that you've done over the years?
I think there's some of those stories where you can kind of document, stories about athletes and, overcoming tragedy and things and different unique stories and circumstances, that they face. I think those are the ones that always kind of stand out at you, as well as maybe some like special projects and things that you can work on. I'm kind of a big baseball junkie, so sometimes I enjoy some of the bigger pieces that I've done baseball wise on the Lansing Lugnuts and kind of like, the impact that they've had on downtown Lansing and whatnot. But, there's also some, high school stories and things like that, and things that you've been able to cover from a high school perspective that, kind of jump out at you as well too, or athletes that you cover as well too. Like, you talked about Andrew Anthony earlier. I mean, that was, right. Being able to cover him was awesome. Brandon Johns was another guy that was at East Lansing that was at Michigan, and, I got to cover him throughout his entire high school career. So I think, being able to follow some of these standout athletes as they kind of progress through high school, and then, see them, be able to reach their dreams and, earn the, Division I scholarships is very fun to do. And also seeing teams reach the top of the mountaintop, when the team, wins a state championship and you're able to follow their run and you see them, actually do it, especially, Ford's Field, or, the Breslin Center when they do it as well too. I mean, those are just kind of exciting moments and those things that you kind of, they energize you as well too, because especially basketball. I mean, basketball can be a long season. It can be a grind, and from going from late November and December until late March, and it can kind of wear you down a little bit. But I think once you get to March Madness and basketball season, then all of a sudden you got that energy going again, and seeing teams go on runs and just the atmosphere at games just kind of gives you that energy and gets you excited about what you're doing.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you there. It is a grind, but when it's capped off at a weekend at Breslin, that's kind of nice. It's a good setup. Final question for you, Brian. If you look at all the sports you cover, are you like us? This is the time of year. Football really is the king, or is there another sport that you like to follow better?
No, I think football. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm a baseball junkie, but there's nothing like high school football.
Yeah.
Just like the week to week thing and being able to set up things, and it's my favorite sport to cover from a high school perspective. And the audience is there too. The community is there. I mean, people love to rally around the high school football game, and you see they get to take in the atmosphere from the stands whenever you're at a game as well too. So I just really enjoy football season and kind of following the week to week progression of things. And I like too that it's kind of once a week thing, so you're able to kind of set things up from time to time and kind of look ahead to big games. I mean, it's so hard to do that with all the other sports, especially basketball when they're playing 2-3 times a week, where it's kind of hard to kind of set things up from that perspective just because it's bang bang bang. But no, football's that unique sport where it's kind of the once a week kind of thing, and you can set up big games, and you can kind of just the atmosphere that surrounds football games as well too. I mean, they're community events, and football is kind of what drives the boat for a lot of schools for sure.
Friday night,
especially when those Friday night lights, especially when you've been in a community, you've been in the Lansing area now for a while. You're getting pretty well plugged in. Us growing up in Corona, the Duran story this year is really cool. We had their head coach on a couple weeks ago, and seeing them beat New Lothrop and win their first league title in like 30-40 years. Those are the kind of stories that you get those in basketball and other sports, but I don't know, maybe it's because we love football. It seems like they're just very different in high school football.
Yeah, they definitely are. And like you said, I mean, I was kind of following along that Duran New Lothrop game as well too, because it had big implications for Owosso, which is part of our coverage area as well too. And if New Lothrop would have pulled off the win, that could have ended that league could have ended in a 3-way tie as well too. So I mean, that was kind of an exciting game to follow, just kind of the high stakes, and obviously New Lothrop, and they've had so much success over the years. So, but hats off to Duran and what they've been able to do, and it's really started when they beat Langsburg. With a nice little win in week 1, and Langsburg's been a pretty good team this year. Hasn't lost since falling in week 2 to Pewamo, Westphalia, and won a share of a league title as well too. So what Duran has done has been very impressive.
Yep,
absolutely. Well, great stuff here, Brian. We do appreciate it. We also appreciate you being a charter member of the 3 Point Podcast Prep Preview. We always look forward to your outlook of the season before it all begins. Before we sign off, tell our listeners best spot to check you out.
Yeah, you can definitely check me out. Stories on lsj.com, as you said. And I'm on Twitter at Brian, BRIAN _ Calloway, CALLOWAY. Thanks, guys, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for the time. We'll be back with a little further wrap up here on our prep spotlight. But first, this from Capital Sports Fieldhouse. All right, that was really fun with Brian. He knows his stuff on the Lansing area, and he even knows the stuff a little closer to home that we like. Let's talk a little local stuff here first of all. Normally I would lead off with Corunna, but I got to lead off with the Duran Railroaders. They came in number 5 in Division 6. Brian talked about it a little bit. 23-21 win over New Lothrop. New Lothrop was number 9 in Division 7, and we know what kind of program they had. I mean, Duran's got it going, man. It's going down the railroad all the way, man.
How awesome
show your notes? Did you write that down?
I did not write that down.
You came up with that on the whim. All right.
I stumbled over that.
How awesome was it seeing Coach covered in the Gator? I think it was water. Right after the game. I mean, just a great photo. I mean, that's sometimes you don't even need to see the story. You don't even need to see the recap. You don't need the write up. You just need a good photo to really hammer a moment home. I mean, it's awesome. We were all pulling for him, from week 1. Then, we talked to him. Great interview. People loved it. I'm still pulling for him the rest of the way. It's a great story.
It is.
It's a great story. First league title since 1983. That's
they
crazy.
hung a banner. That was their mission.
I mean, and like Brian said, I mean, and we know we have Coach Galvis on. We've had him on a few times. New Lothrop is a power. New Lothrop is one of the best programs in the state. And even if maybe they're a touch down this year, that's a huge win for Duran. Yeah. So, man, that gives you the Duran's rolling down that railroad. Like you said, Ted, you beat New Lothrop. Now those kids are saying we can win it all.
Yeah.
I mean, because, even though they were confident going in that game, it's in the back of their mind, like, oh God, this New Lothrop team, they beat New Lothrop. Now let's go win it all, man. Let's go to Ford Field.
You know, and I did write this down. Okay, a little takeoff on Tuck's coming, train's coming, baby.
Now, so what about? So Brian brought up Ovid Elsie.
Yes,
and we were signing off, but Ovid Elsie Corona this Friday, right?
On the turf over at O'Donnell Field. That's going to be a pretty good game, I think.
So who's it bigger for? You guys know a little more than me. Who's it bigger for? Is it maybe we should be asking Snooze, our guest last week? Is it bigger for Corona or is it bigger for OE? What do you guys think?
I think
that's a good question.
It's big. I mean, that's a classic rivalry. That's what we talk about. We always say we want to see the old MMB, play out. That's a classic rivalry, man. I don't care if these kids hardly know each other. The second you step on that field, it's going to be a bigger crowd than what you would normally expect on a Friday night game between Corona and Swords Creek. There's bragging rights on the line. I mean, I don't care. Both teams are probably going to make playoffs regardless. Yeah. So it's just a flat out bragging rights game. And I mean, it's huge to win that week 9 game heading into playoffs. You lose that game and you're like limping into playoffs. It's so big. It's big at any level, let alone high school when like you're living, these kids are living and dying on every snap. And momentum swings are crazy. So I think just in that sense, it's a huge game for both teams.
Yeah, especially if you lose it. Like if if you would have won it, you would be hosting your first round playoff game. If you lose it and now you have to go on the road in the first round, it's just like bad vibes, heading into the playoffs, kind of like you said.
I think that's where it's at because I think Corona right now probably has enough points that they will definitely host a first round game. If they get the win, they'll probably host 2 games, depending where they go, Lansing, or if they go the other way, and we've talked about it before, they'd get a tough draw if they got Frankenmuth in their district. But it should be a good game, a great rivalry game. Yep. I'm looking forward to it. And we're broadcasting that one on the Castle, by the way. So
nice.
I'll have some juice.
Nice. So yeah, definitely tune into the Castle. I'll Friday night. I'll be on that app. I'll be on that free Z92.5 app, listening to the sweet nothings of Ted Fattel coming over the airwaves.
Sweet nothings. That's key.
It's kind of the same for me as. Sorry, Jared. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
The Ovid Elsie thing is kind of the same to me, and it's not taking shots at the program or anything, but as the Duran thing, because Ovid Elsie, when I was playing, early 2000, late 90s, early 2000s, Ovid Elsie was down. I mean, we Corona was, we were smoking them every single time. I mean, my senior year, we beat them 44-0, and Ovid Elsie was just down. So when they turned things around, the last 10 years or whatever, it was one of those where I was like, really, Ovid Elsie? Okay, cool. But it's awesome to see. I mean, they won a state title, right? Or
no, they lost in the state championship game. That was Chris Robinson's team, and he was probably the greatest running back I've seen in our area, man.
He was incredible. I remember watching those games as a kid. I think he was actually dinged up in the state championship game, so he didn't even get to really even leave his mark. I'm looking at the Snooze to Use site right now. I'll be honest. Duran, I didn't realize they were D6. That makes all this even more impressive. I thought they were D5 this whole entire time. I'm looking at D6, and I'm looking at what their draw would be right now. It's Duran, Lanesburg, Ovid Elsie, and Lansing Catholic, which Brian Calloway just let us know how down they are this year. And then on top of that, they would have a tough matchup in potentially a Clinton or a Constantine in the regional final. But here's the thing about D6 compared to like a D5 or D4, where there's a Grand Rapids, Catholic Central, Frankenmuth. There's really not a world beater waiting for you. Duran can beat any one of these teams, or at least they're going to be in a tight game with any one of these teams they face. You just hope they don't, get a little too big for their bridges. Right. You just hope they keep doing what they're doing, what's got them here, because I tell you what, and I say this, like when I heard you say Ford Field, Matt, I was like, kind of thought to myself, I don't know if that's likely. But looking at this as it's currently laid out, they have a damn good chance. Keep battling, keep doing what they're doing, keep pounding it down people's throat, Jim Harbaugh style with that wing tee.
You mentioned the
end of the day. We can maybe do this more than say a Brian Calloway or a writer who has to cover these teams. Let's say Duran and Corona play on a neutral field. What do you guys think? Who do you think wins that ball game?
Ooh.
I mean, I'll give my 2 cents real quick. You guys, Ted, you've watched Corona a few times already. Have you broadcast a Duran game yet?
I have not, so it's going to be tough for me to even say. I mean,
we're going off. Yeah, we're going off of what Coach John Webb told us, and other stuff. It seems like to me from afar, contrasting styles.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like very contrasting styles. It seems like, say, a run and gun Mike Leach air raid team going up against Georgia Tech back when they used to run the wing. It seems like something like that. That would, I don't know. So what team is going to control the clock and stuff,
If I had to say, I think Duran would win. I like Corona. I know Corona, that's like kind of our lifeblood, our Corona listeners. So, maybe we just lost a few with that comment, but just if I'm being 100% honest from what I've seen scores wise from both teams, I've watched Corona play, seen highlights of Duran. Like you said, the contrasting styles, I'm always going to lean run. If you're a run team that relies on the run in high school football, especially, you can count on that a lot more than you can throwing the ball all over the yard. I really do think Duran is the real deal in this area. I think in Shiawassee County, man, they're the team to beat.
They are the real deal for sure. And you talk about the run. I mean, the Allward and Lynn they're like the dynamic duo that Michigan has. I mean, they're putting up big numbers, and they definitely pound the ball. I would say this about Corona, and I'm not going to say who I would say win or not, but Corona, I think they do play a little better competition during the regular season. They play in a bigger league,
right,
and they're impressive. I mean, they just picked up. It was kind of cool. Goodrich in the same league, same division as Corona, defeated Linden in the upper bracket of the Flint Metro League, and then Corona in an exciting game down Swartz Creek, 28-27. Wyatt Bauer, 4 touchdown passes, all 4 touchdown passes, and the defense stopped the Dragons on a 2-point try late in the game. So,
and I'll be honest, that what that makes me say is Goodrich is legit. When I first saw the Corona Goodrich score, I thought, just whatever, kind of the typical, we're all Corona guys, we know how it goes. They'll build up this team, then they kind of lay an egg. Goodrich is legit. I mean, that other division is big schools. Linden's good every single year. Yep. There's been years past where Linden's, railroaded these teams in our Flint Metro division. So what that tells us is Corona's legit, and that might make me rethink my Corona Duran pick. I didn't know that fact.
We won't see it happen, but it's going to be fun to talk about. And, on our radio broadcast schedule for the playoffs, you never know where we're going to be. So I wouldn't doubt we'll hop on the train somewhere along the line. I was going to say,
what are you guys going to do? Corona, Durand? What are you going to do?
It's tough. It's tough. I don't know. And also throw in a little Morris 8-man football. Every once in a while, they'll play an early Saturday game. We might end up over at Field of Dreams as Morris beat Portland St. Pat pretty easily, 46-26. So we got a lot of great high school football going on in our area. Week 9 coming up, and then it gets real, the playoffs. I can't wait for that. Yeah. Well, we'll talk a little college football. There was some fairly good games this last weekend, I would say, and we'll get into that right after this.
I never thought I'd say this. I really never ever thought I would. All those years we used to watch, Paul Chris, Brett Bielema at Wisconsin. I used to shit on their play style. I used to hate the run the damn ball way of doing things. Now I see the appeal. There's nothing more satisfying than maybe in all my life than that Saturday we just watched. Michigan just absolutely disrobing Penn State by just pounding it right down their throat. It's incredible. It's like watching, those Alabama teams with Derrick Henry. This team is so much fun to watch. If I was playing against Michigan, you just know how much it would irritate you to watch this happen to your team. It's incredible. Corum, Edwards, 2 of the most fun backs that you can have in college football. We saw it last year with Corum and Haskins, kind of how they played off each other. And then we were kind of thinking at the time, man, I can't wait to see what this offense is going to look like with Corum getting the bulk of the reps. Now I'm almost like with watching Corum, I'm like, I can't wait to see what this offense is going to be like with Edwards getting all these carries, because he's almost like a Christian McCaffrey type where it's like line him out. He's going to be a mismatch nightmare for linebackers, run the ball. He does everything. This has just been one hell of a Saturday. Like you said it up at the top of the pod, Ted. What a great Saturday it was. We had a lot of close games to follow that Michigan absolute blowout win at noon. Just an incredible Saturday. I'm so happy. And I just hope that we always adopt this, sort of Jim Harbaugh mindset. Just keep pounding it down people's throats. I don't care if JJ McCarthy, over the next, couple years as he develops, if he becomes Tom Brady, I don't care. Mm-hmm. Keep this same sort of mantra going of run the damn ball, because it's working and it's a lot of fun to watch.
It's something that Ted, you're going to be the one that probably agrees with this the most. It's something that you can always count on in football. I mean, Jared, you talked about it when we were talking high school football. If you're a high school football team like Durand that can rely on the run, it's always going to be there. Yeah, there might be a team that kind of stacks the box and kind of slows it down a little bit, but you can always rely on the run, especially when you have a good offensive line, really maybe like a great offensive line like Michigan has right now. They're gelling. They had some injuries early in the season, but now they're coming back. They're getting things figured out. Hopefully after this bye week, they're really ready to go against Michigan State. But like you said, you got to backlit Corum, who is he's in the Heisman race. I mean, I don't care if people want to call us slappies. He's legitimately in the Heisman race. And then you got a change of pace like Edwards. It's really, it's like the perfect scenario for what Michigan has, because they made the move to JJ McCarthy. And, we all want to see, you were talking about Andrew Anthony and all these receivers that they have. We want to see JJ McCarthy look like CJ Stroud in Ohio State. I mean, I'm one of them. I want to see that. But he doesn't have to be right now. You said it, I think, last week or the last few weeks, Jared, to win all these Big Ten games, maybe until the Ohio State game, this is what you got to do if you're Michigan. Pound the rock and, just wear these teams out. You could see that Penn State game. They just wore Penn State out. I mean, they were just pounding it and pounding it. Penn State coming into the game, I know rankings are kind of BS. They were the number 10 team in the country coming in, number 5 rushing defense in the whole country. And Michigan ran for 418 yards on them. I mean, it's just impressive. It was an impressive performance. And the last thing I'll say real quick, I mean, we're going to go more. That halftime score, like the score isn't really indicative of how dominating that performance is. I saw Joel Klatt said the same thing. He tweeted after the game. I mean, Joel Klatt loves Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, but he said that final score doesn't tell how dominating that performance is. Because really, it was like 2-3 fluke plays that kind of kept Penn State in it. Otherwise, they didn't do shit.
No, and James Franklin didn't help him a lot either, I thought, on that fourth down call, and Michigan turned it right around into his face,
Yeah.
But that was fun to see. But I'm glad you brought up the offensive line, because Corum and Edwards get all the press, but that offensive line they're seriously blocking. I mean, they're opening up gigantic holes for these guys. It's fun to see, and it was fun to see JJ actually run the option a little bit and keep it himself on the option. I mean, that gives you 3 weapons right there, man. It is hard not to be excited for the Wolverines right now. I mean, after last year and after the quarterback controversy before the season, we didn't know how everything was going to shake down, but man, they're playing well. And I like the fact that both them and Michigan State have buys. There's no advantage either way.
Yep. It's like, it's poetry watching the Corum and Edwards, go to work. And Corum is, I mean, would you guys agree? I mean, Matt, you were kind of there for the Mike Hart. Ted, you might have other guys that you've seen obviously throughout the years at Michigan, stud running backs. But I mean, what we've seen him do last year and every single week this year, and as he continues to build, I'm sure we're going to see it the rest of the year this year. How do you not put him at the top of your Michigan running back list? He is so much fun to watch. He's got, something about his play style. It's electric. He's short. He's stout. He's strong as hell. I mean, we saw that the 1-yard touchdown run. Might have been his most impressive run of the game was on whatever it was on the goal line when he had 2 Penn State defensive linemen standing up, and he just pushed right through them and got into the end zone. He's my favorite player. My favorite player on Michigan. He's maybe my favorite running back I've ever seen play at Michigan. Am I alone in that?
I have a couple childhood ones. Like Anthony Thomas is one of mine. I liked Biaka Batuka. Ted, you remember him?
Oh, for sure.
Yep. And then Mike Hart obviously is, I mean, he was good every year. I mean, he just had a fantastic career at Michigan, but Blake Corum is moving up that. I mean, he's chasing Mike Hart.
He's chasing Mike Hart.
He's chasing Mike Hart. I agree. And it's just so impressive watching how he runs. There's that clip in one of the runs. He was going off to the side, and a Penn State linebacker came and smoked him. And he just stayed up. He got knocked to the side, but he stayed up.
Got incredible balance, man.
Yeah. His cuts. I mean, you watch the replays of his cuts. I don't know how you tackle him. I mean, you watch him just linebackers come up, they don't know what to do. You're like, do I go at him? Because I'm going to get juked. If I stay back, I'm going to get juked. He's a hell of a back, man. He's a hell of a back.
I think the one thing that worries me with this team is the offensive coordinators. We've talked about it. Even watching it in that first half, I wonder if Jim Harbaugh got in their ear and said, "Run the damn ball." They have the tendency, and there's a lot of coordinators to get too cute. I mean, we were watching it on TV. I was yelling at my screen as we're watching this team, basically dominate this first half. But for whatever reason, they couldn't punch it in the red zone.
Right.
And even after that great first half, we were still in a hell of a ball game with Penn State because of a couple bad breaks and us getting a little too cute in offense. We saw it with the McCarthy pick 6. I mean, we were rushing for 5.3 yards per carry at halftime, and yet we only, put up 14 points. I don't know if it's the dual coordinators, the fact we got one up on the field, one up in the booth. I don't know if that's the problem here. I mean, say what you will about Gaddis. He didn't get bored last year just cramming it down your throat. I mean, we saw their only pass play, I think, was a tight end release. So it's like, I just wonder if, when the chips are down and let's say we drop down to 10-0 to Ohio State, and I wonder if they decide to just abandon the run. I can't help but think that as I'm watching that Penn State is a one negative. I still think it's these offensive coordinators. Still think they got some figuring out to do.
Don't you think though that if they get stopped running, let me just jump in real quick, man. Don't you think if they get stopped running, that JJ and the receivers they have, they can change mode quickly and still do damage in the air?
This is what I was actually, at this watch party, what I was discussing is, have you guys noticed that this new vertical offense? I mean, I feel like we saw more deep bombs last year with Cade, and I don't know if that's coordinators. I don't know if that's McCarthy, being a smart decision maker. I don't know what that is, but I haven't really noticed a totally different offense this year under McCarthy, other than, like you said, that he can run with his legs. Other than that, I don't know as much of a difference between him and Cade and their throwing ability.
Right.
That's the one thing I was gonna say is I don't know if he threw. I'd be curious to see the numbers if he threw a ball past 20 yards again. He didn't need to against Penn State.
Yeah.
But to your point, Ted, if they do have to open it up, say Michigan State, starts kind of slowing Corum down, and JJ kind of has to go win the game. Yes, they obviously practice stuff, but are they comfortable in a game? If he has to air it out, I guess that's, it remains to be seen. I think he'd be okay. The big thing to me, I love the way he throws the ball on the run. I would put him on the move every time. The way he throws the ball on the run, and he can run if he needs to, that's where it opens up to me. And, I think right now, I think I said it last week or the week before, I just feel like with Michigan right now, if they play their game, kind of like what Jared said too, I think they're fine in the Big Ten schedule. Ohio State, maybe a flip of the coin. But if they play their game and don't throw an interception off of the helmet of a defender or whatever, they're going to be fine.
Yeah,
they should be fine.
I'm not worried about Ohio State. It's the contrasting styles, and if I'm going to pick, whether you can throw the ball on anyone or you can run the ball on anyone, I'm gonna pick run every day of the week.
But you're not worried about Ohio State at the Horseshoe. Both teams possibly undefeated.
I'll be shitting bricks come that Saturday, but look, we got a long time to worry about it. And I'll tell you what, this Saturday, I feel a lot better today than I did on Saturday morning. What will change? Ohio State's not going to be this totally different defense from last year. This is exactly what we did to Ohio State last year. Yeah, right. I just love what I'm seeing from Harbaugh in this program.
Yeah.
It's exactly the style we needed to adopt. You see teams like Michigan State trying to, copy Ohio State. We need to zig when they zagged, and we've done it and we've mastered it.
Kind of to that point, what you're saying with Michigan State. I don't know if Ted, you were gonna.
I was going to start in the Michigan State a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I've been texting some friends, and I'm trying to stay back. I don't want to be like, God, Michigan State's so bad. Michigan's going to win by 30. I don't want to do that. We won't, because I do honestly. I do think that through the air, Thorne and Reed and some of these other dudes could pose a threat to Michigan if they just go full air raid, kind of like we said, Jared. If they go full Ohio State and say, you know what,
they have to,
right? We're not going to beat Michigan on the ground. You got to run the ball at least a little bit, but let's let Thorne air it out and hope Reed just has a career day. And I mean, Michigan's defensive backs are good, but we've seen them get penalties and, get beat a little bit. So honestly, that's what worries me the most. There's no Kenneth Walker over there, so I'm not worried about that. But if Thorne goes out there and has a Rocky Lombardi day, in 2020, Michigan could be in trouble. I don't know.
Yeah. No, Peyton Thorne had a great game against Wisconsin, and let's just talk about that game real quick.
Yeah,
and then we'll segue to the Michigan.
I was kind of talking about that. Thorne looked really good.
He did 21, 29, 2 touchdowns, 290. Had a big time throw to Reed, which RG3 called. RG3, I've come full circle on him. I didn't like him, as an announcer, in the past couple of years or even earlier this year. But I love it. Because that game, that Michigan State versus Wisconsin game, there's a lot of announcers who would have phoned it in. Ted, I was even texting you during the Tennessee-Alabama game. I normally don't ever comment on the announcers, and I feel stupid saying that about Danielson and because how good they are. It didn't seem like they had the juice that game required. Like if a Gus Johnson was calling it, or if a Kirk Herbstreit and Fowler were calling it. I don't know. Something about it just seemed off to me, even though I love the CBS production of SEC games. But Robert Griffin brought some juice to that game. And I loved it. He called, Jaden Reed on that touchdown game winner, walking off, called it right before the snap happened. I even had to rewind it and watched it. But in terms of Michigan State and what I saw in that game, we got to talk about Mel Tucker's near debacle. It was a Dan Campbell-esque debacle at the end of that game. 24 seconds left, no timeouts left. They're easily in field goal range. basically everyone's just expecting them to, run a play to the left, get it to the left hash or to the right hash, whatever. It would have been left hash for a left-footed kicker. What do? They run this little like jet bubble screen to Reed. He's tackled immediately. And then the next thing you know, it's a fire drill sprinting off the field, bringing the kicking unit out. It's mass chaos, and they end up blowing it. What was that? And why is nobody talking about that? I understand they won, but even at the time on Twitter, I was like, oh, this Twitter's going to have a heyday about this. No one was talking about it.
Right. Maybe because overtime happened immediately, you know, something like that. But yeah, that, like you said, that was a near, if they would have ended up losing that game in overtime, they're not firing Mel Tucker, but you're getting a lot of questions because it was like, what kind of play was it? Like, what were you expecting to get out of that? Were you expecting Reed to like get a first down, or maybe he picks up some yards, gets out of bounds? Like, it really is like, what were you trying to get out of that play? Because all of a sudden the field goal unit's running on, and it was just like, they're going to screw this up. And sure enough, they botch a snap.
Play, it would have lived in infamy if they didn't somehow found a way to win that game, because it's like, that's the funny thing, Matt. I don't know if somebody with the greatest football mind could not explain what they were trying to gain out of that.
Right.
It was just a quick screen, tackled immediately. He had no chance of getting out of bounds.
Right.
What does he maybe gain at best 5 yards, turns whatever it was, 45 yarder to a 40 yarder. And instead you trade out, just taking your time on this field goal for having to sprint this kicker out. And we saw what happened. It just made no sense.
Yeah. And then they come in the first play of overtime. They run a wide receiver screen pass for a touchdown. It was like, this is the weirdest game ever.
It was.
I love that call. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was.
But that was during my Saturday, fellas. It was just an incredible day, because a lot of time on game day Saturdays, I'll watch the Michigan game. I'll half-heartedly watch the Michigan State game. But with so many good contests, including Tennessee, Alabama going on at the same time as Michigan State, and they virtually ended at the same time.
Yes.
I mean, Jared said him and I were texting back and forth. I think I texted once that Tennessee's going to lose this game, and then all of a sudden that last sequence and then knuckleball field goal for the win was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. And a whole bunch of other good games going on. And on top of that, Major League Baseball had some classics, including an 18-inning 0-0 game until the 18th.
That's the second one of this playoffs too. Yes, that's cool, but I'm not sitting around for 18 innings watching a 0-0 game. I mean, I get it.
I'm way different.
That's awesome. Trust me.
Tension. We couldn't turn the channel.
I get
couldn't
it.
Do it.
Trust me. I understand, because playoff baseball, man, it is. There's nothing like playoff baseball.
Yeah.
18 innings at 0-0.
Yeah.
I need some scoring. I mean, give me something.
Dude, it's funny how different the two games between Michigan State was. And I'll be lying. I turned on the baseball game. I was trying to force myself to watch it, and I almost came to a realization, man, baseball is just severely flawed. That game should have, like you said, I should have not been able to turn the channel. It was like torture watching it.
Yeah,
I just couldn't.
There's the generation.
I love baseball. I'm starting to come around to the baseball train. I'm for baseball. I love the Tigers, man. I just, at its peak, that sport, it just still can't compete with a Tennessee-Alabama game.
Right.
Honestly, in my opinion, still can't compete with a Michigan State versus Wisconsin game. It's just two different sports. It's nothing that the MLB is doing wrong. It's just the sport as it is, man. But I kind of tweeted it out, and then I realized
Ted wants to get in. Ted wants to defend baseball.
I'll button up. No, it's a generational thing. It's absolutely generational.
I don't know how, man.
That's baseball at its finest, man. You don't have to see a 10-9 game, man. You got your rotating pitchers in. It's high drama. The winner of the game could be closing it out. I mean, I agree with you. It's a long sit, man, because I had other things I could have watched on Saturday night, but there was no way I was changing it once I did. In fact, I was going back and forth. I wasn't going back and forth to college football at that time. I was going back to the Yankees game and the Guardians. I mean, in that game, by the time the 18-inning game got over, they were already in the 7th inning going to the 8th. Yeah. It was supposed to start afterwards. But I disagree. I'm definitely disagree. My wife and I were both just 100% tuned into that 18-inning game. It was awesome.
maybe part of the disdain for 18-inning games comes from working in television production and working those games when you're sitting in there for 5 hours, and you're just like, God, someone please score. Someone please score a run.
It's got to be tough.
No, yeah, I feel bad for them. At least it was a playoff game where you're,
Yeah.
like I said, hopefully they were like sitting on the edge of their seat during this. I wasn't, but no, it was sucks, man. And I texted you that, Ted. I don't think you ever said it, but I missed the ending of the Tennessee game.
Yeah,
because I was watching the ending of Michigan State. I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I was like watching the celebration. I was watching, the crowd. Like pretty solid crowd. I'll be honest. Tip your hat to Michigan State. Not a bad crowd for
homecoming.
Two lackluster teams.
Yeah,
they did it pretty well. They made themselves heard. But no, I ended up missing it. But what can we say about the Tennessee-Alabama game? Here's my biggest takeaway, I think, from this college football season. We were laughing last week, or I was, kind of shitting on this season. I didn't feel like it was a great season. It ended up being a great Saturday that made up for this, lackluster first few weeks. But I think, biggest takeaway of college football this year, I think there's just a lot of stud quarterbacks this year.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams. I'm watching the highlights of USC versus Utah this morning. He was making some incredible plays.
Yeah.
Hendon Hooker, Bryce Young, they both were going toe for toe with each other. It's just been one hell of a year. I'm loving every second, but I think it's the year of the college football quarterback. And then Stroud, throw him out there. It makes McCarthy look like a scrub compared to these guys. So that's my biggest takeaway from yesterday. Quarterback.
Who do you take right now if you're the Lions and you got an opportunity to pick one of those you just mentioned?
Caleb Williams.
I think I'm leaning his way too. I like everything about him. I just think he's a good kid, good head on his shoulders. I like him a lot.
The big thing to me,
I think he's a stud, still a great leader. I mean, he's almost like a one-man team, it seems like sometimes on Alabama, which is crazy to think with Alabama, but that just shows how good the SEC is. So
Alabama lost it. The Alabama lost like all their receivers. Their receiving room is depleted. If you put Michigan's receiving room at Alabama, Bryce Young would be running away with the Heisman probably. Yeah. But Caleb Williams, the big thing to me, CJ Stroud, what Ohio State quarterback has been good in the NFL? And I know that doesn't mean CJ Stroud won't be good, but it's hard not to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State quarterbacks just aren't good in the NFL. So that would be one of my things. Caleb Williams, not that I watch every single USC game or whatever, but he just looks the part,
Yeah.
So you like 6'2", 6'3"? I know Bryce Young, they say he might even be under 6 foot. That's a little bit of
that's the one thing that makes me nervous. He seems like a great leader. I mean, Saban loves him. Like I don't think Saban's ever yelled at him. Saban yells at everybody, especially his quarterback.
That's for sure.
You never see him do that to Young, even if he makes a mistake, man. So I just think he's a great leader. But I just worry about his size. Sort of like the same thing with Tua. Never really questioned anything about Tua other than if he could stay on the field and be healthy.
Right.
But what about that ending of that Tennessee-Bama game? How legit, Matt? You're in the heart of it, SEC country. SEC is just better. Just is. I mean, I love Michigan. I love the big house. I love the environment. I mean, it literally looked like they had won the Super Bowl after that game. The tearing down the goalposts, the like fireworks show. I mean, we saw the post-game interview. It looked like just pure pandemonium. Like it looked like a riot was about to break out. I mean, it's just different down there. And what a moment it was for Tennessee. I mean, that was us last year beating Ohio State. That's exactly what they felt this weekend.
That's what I was gonna say. That it reminded me of when Michigan beat Ohio State last year. But like you kind of said, in the Big Ten, games like that don't happen every year. Like that was, almost like a generational type of, once in a generation epic type of win for Michigan. These happen all the time in the SEC, whether it's the Iron Bowl, whether it's the Egg Bowl with Mississippi State Ole Miss, or whether it's, this game, Tennessee, Alabama, finally, living up to the hype. Not necessarily every week, but multiple times a year, there are games like this in the SEC. And I'm always going to be a Big Ten guy, of course, but it's hard not to notice that because, man, whether it's the kick six or, a bunch of these other finishes in the SEC, you just don't have those in the Big Ten all the time. Cool. Yeah. We had a double overtime Michigan State, Wisconsin game. Cool.
It looked like it looked like it was like Division 3 versus Division 1 when you were flipping channels, like the production, like just everything about it, man. And like the lighting on the field, it was incredible. Switch back and forth at the same time with those two games. Even though, like I said, Michigan State, give them props, man. Good win.
I do want to correct you on one thing. Maybe I'm full of it. I don't think it was RG3 that was working the Michigan State game, was it?
Well, I mean, I'll double check. I thought it was.
Yeah, double check that because I don't think it was.
I'd be really dumb if I was wrong on that. Like I said, I was kind of mostly eyes were on Tennessee versus Bama.
Absolutely. Well, before we wrap up too, we got to talk a little bit about the anchor
you're right.
bone
Spencer
game.
Tillman, dead wrong.
That's what I thought. Spencer Tillman.
I'm an idiot.
Yeah. I just wanted to help correct you here a little bit because I didn't want people to say what a dummy.
No, I am a dummy. I'll be the first to admit it, man.
Real quick though, RG3 has been making a name for himself.
He's
as a
good.
color guy. He's good.
He is.
Point still stands, but I'll give credit. Spencer Tillman.
Yeah.
Peanut Tillman.
He's underrated, man. Brando and him are a pretty good team, actually.
Yeah.
I like them.
I'm not a big Brando fan.
No, but hey, he's all right. But before we wrap up, your guys did it. You beat Tony Anise, Grand Valley with the win. That was a huge W.
One versus two. Yep, 1 versus 2 in D2 football. Obviously, I saw coming into the game, Ferris State had the longest winning streak in all divisions. I think they had won 19 straight. So anyway, we talked to Coach Anise after they won the national title. So I mean, definitely go check that conversation out if you didn't hear it. But Ferris State's kind of had Grand Valley's number, the last handful of years or whatever. So it's a big win for Grand Valley.
No doubt about it. And, it just shows that GLIAC, that's a tough Division II league, one of the best. Even Saginaw Valley with Ryan Brady, I mean, they have 2 losses. I think their only 2 losses was Grand Valley and Ferris in both close games.
Yeah, no, I'm not rooting for Grand Valley in that game, I'll be honest. I think we're all kind of pulling for Ferris in that matchup, obviously. But in terms of it's just in the rivalry in general, it's kind of almost was like Michigan, Ohio State for a period there, which just speaks how good Ferris and Tony have been. Where it's like Grand Valley really needed a win, man, to keep this rivalry, keep the juice flowing in it. And chances are they're going to face each other in playoffs. So believe me, Ferris, you haven't heard the last from Ferris. So
congrats to the Lakers for this week, anyway.
Right.
Well, is there anything else we got to get off the table, boys? I know we're a little in overtime. I think we've covered everything.
So. I mean, isn't it a lot more enjoyable on a Sunday when the Lions aren't playing?
Yeah, a lot less stress.
Yeah,
sure. God. Let's hope they figured some things out over the bye week, man. I mean,
we're
lucky we didn't have a Lions F up today because we were kind of the pod's going long as is. So we're kind of almost thank God for that as well, because we probably could have, knowing them. And next week we'll probably have 30 minutes to talk about how they screwed something up. So
probably
for us.
Well, we'll see what Dan Campbell has in store for us. We can't help but see today, you see the Giants now 5-1. You see the Jets 4-2 with Saleh, who wasn't good enough to be offered a contract with the Lions.
Native.
And right from Detroit. So a lot to remain in the crystal ball for the Lions and Campbell, but we'll still watch them every week. So we did get a break today. I did do a few things outside myself, so didn't have to have that stress.
You got to do it.
All right, fellas. Just a reminder to everybody, this has been the 3 Point Podcast presented by Memorial Healthcare, home of the New Now Community Wellness Center. Don't forget to join us for the fall open house on November 16th from 4 to 7. There's tours, raffles, smoothie samples, all kinds of good stuff, including 50% off enrollment fees. And there will also be a tabletop show with over 30 vendors. It all takes place November 16th at the Now Building on North Shiawassee in Owosso, Michigan. Also, we want to thank Skymint Cannabis, Michigan's leader in the industry with many convenient locations throughout Michigan. Use that coupon code at the Corunna store, 3.20 for 20% off your first purchase. If you are a user, stock up and take that 20% off. You'll be happy you did. And definitely check out their new Skymint Reserve. It's the good stuff. Also, make sure you let all our great partners know you listen in and enjoy the program. They include AZEE Printing Solutions, Capital Sports Fieldhouse and Hit and Pitch, Crow Real Estate and Auction, NCG Cinemas. Definitely, they're partnered up for us for the big giveaway at Rivals on Michigan State Day. A football autographed by the coach himself, Jim Harbaugh, and we want to thank them for that. Also want to thank Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals, Taphouse and Grille, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. Special thanks tonight to Brian Calloway of the Lansing State Journal. And don't forget to catch the great country band Chi-Town October 22nd at the Twisted Bull in Grand Rapids. And they had a big signing. Somebody saw them play down in Royal Oak, and they are signed up for a 3-night gig at one of the best country bars in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A 3-night stand. Jared, it might mess up our opening day at Comerica because it's opening day at PNC, and I think it's the same weekend. Isn't that great?
Yeah,
that's an awesome. I mean, you get any sort of set 3, like a festival type of that. That's got to be exciting for them.
Yeah, 3 nights at the Tequila Cowboy, and like I said, it was a promoter that saw them play at Royal Oak. So that's good stuff right there. Congrats to Chi-Town. Also, our Z92.5 game of the week coming up Friday, October 14th. It's a good one. Old MMB rivals, Corunna at Ovid Elsie. You can hear that all right around 6:45 Friday night. So until next week, so long, everybody. Peace and love. Be kind. Thanks for listening.